in France, and it's interesting because today the Biden administration unveiled its plan to shore up Medicare, which the trust fund is slated to run out of money essentially in 2028. Now, to be clear, again, people pay into Medicare and it kicks back a certain amount. The trust fund was established both for Social Security and Medicare in the early 80s with an anticipation that the boomers would be aging into Medicare and Social Security, and there would need to be an sort of expanded fund for them. And because of, primarily because of wealth inequality, those funds are not as robust as was anticipated. 91% of the country's income was touched by the Social Security and Medicare payroll tax back in the day. Now it's down into the mid to lower 80s. And so that's a big deficit. Biden has proposed to shore that up. We'll talk about that in a moment. But and we saw the implications of Biden at the State of the Union in terms of like questioning the Republicans about Social Security. Well, in France, they take their social retirement funds pretty seriously, obviously. And this came up yesterday with Paxton. France spends, its government owns more
of the public sector.
Of the public sector, or I should say the private sector, or what would be the private sector, than Venezuela, than most countries. Yep. Let's put it that way. And so France is a place where they understand that when you evolve, the value, as humans evolve and societies evolve, the value should be returned to the vast majority of people in the form of a better life. And that means we don't work as late into our lives. And their retirement starts at 62. Macron has been hinting at he wants to raise the retirement age. Well, the unions have basically shut down France for the day. And
it's been weeks of this, too.
Here's some footage of that. Not the most kinetic of groups of people, but at this point, but certainly a lot of them. And they have shut down things like subways and railways and all sorts of mechanisms. The country's more or less at a standstill.
That was in Grenoble, France, in the southeast. Very beautiful. That mountain in the background. I've never seen that.
And where's this?
This is in Paris.
Okay, and here's Paris. And really the thing that people are looking out for is unions are out there. How much will there be student protests as well? Because on some level, you know, France is used to these type of protests, and it's unclear what how the Macron government's going to respond.
But 81% I saw today, under 35, are against this. That's a staggering
and we'll see how adamant they become. But here is Paris. Just as far as the eye can see. Wow. So it remains to be seen, but there's a lesson here, folks, that this type of stuff scares these administrations and generally end up, preventing things like essentially like, I don't know, turning the clock back on the development of society.
Yeah, I feel like Macron was always kind of, even from the onset, looking to do stuff like this. And he'd be a long ways farther along if it wasn't for their culture of resistance.
And there's a left in, like, I know that Mélenchon's party is not obviously in power, but their counter to this was let's lower the retirement age to 60. And I think that is something that, like, the elected, more leftist representatives in the United States could glean from this as well.
Lulu Otto on the IM says, why do you think France has a much more active protest culture as compared to the U.S.? I don't know what the fundamental reason, but if you compare, let's say, the American Revolution and the French Revolution happening more or less at the same time, the French Revolution was internal, right? I mean, the American Revolution was
more urban too.
It was more urban. But the American Revolution was really, an attempt to, like, I guess, decolonize themselves as they were colonized.
But become the colonizers themselves.
Yes. But the relationship between, who they were revolting from was at a distance.
Yeah.
The French Revolution was, in and of itself, literally a revolution in terms of the system of government there. Mm-hmm. And I don't, maybe it's just age. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it goes like, there's also the 1848 stuff. Like, France literally widened their streets to deal with people barricading them throughout history. So, like, it's a long-standing, culture there that's been built up over centuries.
And labor militancy, right? I mean, that's what Cole Stangler was talking about when we had him on about this. The labor unions are the muscle behind the protest movement.
Yes. And obviously the labor movement's far stronger, really, in most places than in this country.
And also there's much more solidarity about this particular retirement program because, unlike in the United States, where a lot of our pensions or 401ks are through private industry or privatized, this is really the bulk of what is French people's retirement.
And we should say, the experiment to introduce the 401k, which came in the 80s, has been a failed experiment by really any measure. Mm-hmm. If the idea with the 401k was to give older Americans a better retirement, and by older Americans, I'm talking the majority of older Americans, 401ks are either not available to a huge cohort of American workers, and then B, woefully underfunded. And the problem is that with this experiment is that we have sort of relied on 401ks to be supplemental, as opposed to having it all done through Social Security. And it has left people in their retirements wanting. And when that happens too, it inhibits the ability of younger people to grow their wealth because they're having to take care of their parents more. So that's where we're at. We'll get to this Medicare stuff in just a minute because, and it remains to be seen what the proposal, if there's going to be one in terms of Social Security. There may not in the Biden budget, but we'll see. But they really should, it seems to me, take the offensive on that.
Mm-hmm.